Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna, welcome. We are all waiting to hear from you, and
Oh,
we just finished the last few pages that describe that when Srila Prabhupada left this mortal world in Vrindavan,
oh,
and we hear that you were very fortunate to be there on November 14, 1977. So, if you could please give us your insight and the details and how was, I'm sure it was very sad day, but please give us your account.
okay. So specifically, this November 14, 1977. Okay. So Prabhupada kept telling the temple presidents that the Sankirtan devotees, book distributors who were going out in the front lines every day, that they should be coming to Mayapur Vrindavan Festival in February every year. But somehow I never got the opportunity to come to the Mayapur Vrindavan festivals. Most of the book distributors would come from North America, Australia, Western Europe. That was where the movement was. So anyway, they then realized that Prabhupada was very ill, and finally, the temple president in Vancouver, Canada, he said, "Okay, we'll send you to chant for Prabhupada." So I got there probably a week ahead of the 14th, and many devotees were there, but many were not because November is big marathon, and Prabhupada was extremely strong about book distribution and marathon, and the Christmas marathon would start in November. So huge amount of energy was invested there. So many of the leaders were not there. Um, Especially from North America and Western Europe and South America. So Brahmananda was there, Satsvarup Maharaj was there, Tamal Krishna was there, Hamsaduta was there, some of the names. Bhakti True Maharaj was Prabhupada's kind of assistant with medicine. And what was the mood? Well, no one would accept Prabhupada was going to leave. No one would accept it, although um, he was 82. He'd had heart attacks, etc. So he had diabetes. But the whole mood was, yeah, how would Krishna take Prabhupada? The movement's just taking off like rocket in the West, like huge amounts of energy because of Srila Prabhupada there, and lots more to be done. Um, so when I got there, many of Prabhupada's godbrothers were visiting every day, Gaudiya Math devotees, and Prabhupada would apologize to them. He would say that if I offended you, please forgive me. Because in many places, Prabhupada would write or mention that my godbrothers are neophytes. So he apologized. There was also this desire. Prabhupada wanted to go around Govardhan Hill on a bullock cart, and Lokanath Maharaj was there. Lokanath, I think he was a sannyasi then, but anyway, he, from a village, he knew about bullock carts. And so there were two parties. One party, the Hamsaduta party, was no, you have to do exactly what Prabhupada wants. Prabhupada wants to go in a bullock cart right around Govardhan Hill. The other party, led by Tamal Krishna Maharaj, was no way. The Kaviraj, the doctor, was like, if you take Prabhupada on a bullock cart, there's no way he's going to survive. So this was going on. The spiritual master's desire is absolute, and the other side, we want to save Srila Prabhupada's and protect him. His health is very in limbo. So that mood was there. Of course, very serious. We were chanting every day. We come and chant for Srila Prabhupada in his room. And Prabhupada was speaking into a dictaphone. And obviously, his body was very emaciated, very, very thin. You could see. I was a young 26-year-old brahmachari. So, I mean, still quite immature. And the days went on. And then that morning of the 14th, I somehow woke up very early, around 3 o'clock. And I went into Prabhupada's room and I was chanting for him. And there were only three devotees along with me, four devotees in the room. And Prabhupada was trying to say something and he was flailing his arms like this. And there's a passage in the Nectar of Devotion where Mother Yashoda was flailing her arms like an ocean waves. Where is Krishna? Where is my son? So anyway, Prabhupada was also trying to say something. And he wanted to get up, to sit up. And Bhakti True Maharaj and Jadvaita were, Prabhupada, what are you trying to say? They couldn't quite make it out. Prabhupada wasn't able to speak clearly. But anyway, they sat Prabhupada up. And when they sat him up, that was the first time I saw Srila Prabhupada's body in that condition. And I almost fainted. I mean, it was like Grandfather Bhishmadev. How could he maintain his life here in this body? It was no flesh. It was shock. I was shocked. I almost fainted out of bad feelings. Anyway, they gave Prabhupada some drops of orange juice and then lay him back. At lunchtime, we were taking prasadam. At that time, prasadam was served downstairs from the Gurukula building. And then one devotee came in and announced during prasadam, which was around 12:30, 1 o'clock, the Kaviraj says that Srila Prabhupada will enter samadhi just after 7 o'clock. The Kaviraj predicted just after 7 o'clock, the your Acharya Prabhupada will enter samadhi. So immediately everyone got up and ran to his room. And then, of course, huge amounts of emotion and huge amounts of distraught. It was just extremely overwhelming, the trauma in the room. And we were chanting the familiar chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And we were chanting and chanting for those hours, 6.5 hours chanting like that. And Prabhupada was lying very quietly, listening to the chanting. And some devotees were massaging Srila Prabhupada's feet. His feet were very swollen. Devotees were giving soft, gentle massage to Prabhupada. And as the time grew close, we kept chanting louder and louder. And then suddenly Prabhupada opened his mouth and he said, Hare Krishna, like that, and went to Goloka Vrindavan. At that point, complete pandemonium broke out. Certain devotees who I won't mention went into complete hysteria. They were on the ground, they were screaming Prabhupada's name, and many devotees kept it together, but a few of these devotees were just completely lost their minds. And then Jayadvaita told us, everyone out, because they had to dress Srila Prabhupada's body and then put him on the Vyasasan in the temple room and, tie his body with ribbons. So they dressed Srila Prabhupada. It was just outside the Krishna Balaram guest house where devotees are collected there. And the in charge happened to be my GBC. His name is Jagadish Das from America. He was my GBC, and he was commissioned to organize the digging of Prabhupada's Samadhi. So at that time, there was no heavy equipment, no backhoes, no excavators. It was very sandy, very sandy material there, Raman Reti. At that time, behind the Krishna Balaram guest house, there was nothing, just trees, peacocks, and sand. And you could walk down to the Yamuna River and go, take bath in the Yamuna River. There was nothing but some trees and some pathways, and then some fields, agricultural fields, and village people. And then the Yamuna was extremely clean at that time. Anyway, Jagadish said, I need volunteers to dig Prabhupada's Samadhi. And my hand shot right up. I said, I'll do it. And my godbrother, Abhinanda, from Seattle, Washington, we were good friends. So, yeah, okay, I'll do it too. So the two of us, I believe we may have had some local help as well. We started digging Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi. It was about 12 feet high and 10 feet wide by 10 feet, something like that. But it was sandy. And we spent the whole night digging Prabhupada's Samadhi. And the Prabhupada's godbrothers were in the temple room with many of his disciples. And they were chanting to Srila Prabhupada all throughout the night. So that was Samadhi digging was completed around 6 a.m. or so. And then Prabhupada was put on a palanquin, and we were doing a big kirtan, massive kirtan, and we took Srila Prabhupada to all the various primary temples, the Madan Mohan Temple, Gokulananda Temple, the Govindaji Temple. And we got to Radha Damodar Temple, where Prabhupada had stayed before he came to America and was writing Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. He had his room there. So when we got there, that was very emotional. One leader, he just broke down. He was just weeping and weeping and weeping. One of Prabhupada's closest associates and disciples. I don't know if it's appropriate to mention his name, but he really broke down there, and I was just amazed at the amount of emotion that he was overwhelmed by when we got to the Radha Damodar temple. So that's how it went. Then we brought Prabhupada back, and Narayan Maharaj from the Gaudiya Math, he was the master of ceremonies. He knew how to do all the different mantras and so on, the whole rituals. I hadn't slept for at least, by that time, I hadn't slept for 28 hours. So I don't know, I was a little, out of it. But all the Brijbasis, all the dignitaries from around that area came to see this great personality enter into Samadhi. And a lot of eulogies, a lot of glorification of Prabhupada was offered. Many of his favorable or friendly disciples were there. Krishnadas Babaji, who would come in the room and talk to Prabhupada quite frequently. I don't know where he was living, somewhere outside Vrajman, in the Vrajmandal area, maybe near Nandagaon or somewhere. But he'd somehow come, and he's famous for always chanting. So he was a very powerful presence. Anytime he came in the room, I could feel this real Krishna love, prema, Krishna Shakti. And he was very close with Srila Prabhupada. His name is Krishnadas Babaji. So all these devotees were there, and Prabhupada was and entered into Samadhi. A lot of heavy emotions, a lot of heavy kind of grieving and separation from Prabhupada was being felt. Of course, I was in Vrindavan, but around the world, so many devotees were totally, overwhelmed by Prabhupada's entering into Samadhi and going back to Goloka Vrindavan or going with Krishna. So that was the final stages of Srila Prabhupada. in retrospect, I noticed that Srila Prabhupada was constantly translating. He could hardly speak. He hadn't eaten for 6 months, but he kept translating the 10th canto, the beginning of 10th canto. He kept giving his purports into the dictaphone, which was held by Jayadvaita Maharaj. So Prabhupada, until his last breath, was preaching like anything. He was a great warrior, like Grandfather Bhishma. He was a great warrior. He never stopped struggling for Krishna. Um, always pushing us to spread Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Don't waste time. Don't lapse. Don't hesitate. Just go hard as a warrior. And that's the example we saw in Srila Prabhupada. He was totally transcendental to his, his invalid body, his weakness, everything. He just kept going. I was in the room a few days before he went into samadhi, and he was talking to someone, one of his godbrothers, and he was saying, "Oh, those, our adversaries, the enemies, the materialistic people, the demoniac people." He says, "How this Swami is still beating his drum." In other words, the metaphor there, the Prabhupada, although he was very, very, very ill, terminally ill, he said, he was still beating his drum, and this drum is traveling around the globe in the form of his books, his purports, his Srimad Bhagavatam, his other books, those books are so powerful that they're actually, we have seen how they've transformed the entire world just by his words. So that's one of the comments he made. Another comment he made that really struck me was, Prabhupada, maybe we should take you to the holy places. And when the devout disciple suggested that, Prabhupada was looking up and he said, "There's so many holy places around India." And when he said it was almost like all these holy places personified came into the room. You could feel like he had ushered them into his room. I felt this whole presence because the holy places have they're personified. And I remember that. It just struck in my mind. And when Prabhupada said that, it's almost like they all came to visit Prabhupada. There are many holy places all over India, you know. So those are some of the things that I remember on the last days. Prabhupada being on the planet was very intense. It is extremely intense. It's like the milk was really condensed down into like condensed milk, And so every day things were happening. Every day things were going on. Every minute things were going on. The explosion in the West was just extreme. And of course, a lot of retaliation is there when strong preaching is going on against demoniac civilization, which is what it is. And Prabhupada would get the news every day. Devotees would come, like I remember Hamsaduta came in and said, in Germany and Europe, we have distributed so many books. We've translated books into so many European languages. Prabhupada would always be encouraging and saying, yes, the books are the basis, books are the weapons that will, the arsenal that will transform this whole world. His books are non different from him. His words are extremely powerful. And he always said, Krishna is writing the books. I'm his instrument. He would say that. So devotees were coming in that time, those few days before Prabhupada entered into samadhi. Devotees were coming, and so many of them were reporting. And Prabhupada's always asking, oh, how is my book distribution? How is the preaching going? It was all about his missionary drive to change the world. That's what it was all about. And everyone lined up behind him. Everyone got in line to spread this Krishna consciousness movement. Primarily, it was he has emphasized the book distribution as the real method for changing the world. Of course, he also said, "Oh, you're distributing my books, but you're not reading them. What is the problem?" So he also wanted us to maintain good Krishna conscious strength by morning sadhana and so on. But certainly there was no doubt in anyone's mind during Prabhupada's presence that he was sitting on our heads. If we did 1,000,000 books, he'd tell us, you double it. If we did 2,000,000, now you double it again. It was always that emphatic um, tour de force to push on through distributing his words to people. And he said that his words would change their hearts and change their lives. In fact, he would say in our presence, even if they don't read my books, even they just touch them, their lives will become changed and transformed. So our vision, of course, is quite neophyte, but these sounds that are completely transcendental in the form of his books, these sounds are transforming the entire globe, the global population of the world. And they're associating with Srila Prabhupada through his words, through his purports, through his commentaries, through his instructions. People get the association of Srila Prabhupada. And so this is basically what we got from Prabhupada. He was very strong also with his closest managers. He would chastise them sometimes strongly. So if you were close with Srila Prabhupada, he was like strong as a thunderbolt and sometimes soft as a rose, like that. So sometimes you get the mercy in different ways. Sometimes with mercy and kindness. If he knew some devotees were a little bit sentimental, a little soft, then he would recognize that and he wouldn't be so thunderbolt like with them. But for those devotees who were like his generals, he would be very strong with them, very sometimes chastised. He said, my duty as spiritual master is to chastise you. So that is, some of the memories that I have. I don't know how much more time I have, but
we have a lot of time. We have 4 days. Did you get any personal instruction from Srila Prabhupada?
I was a rank and file soldier. Every time Prabhupada would come to,
Talking.
every time the Srila Prabhupada would come to America, we would go to Los Angeles and, meet him. Uh, you know, so yeah, we were
Los Angeles and you meet him.
in Los Angeles. I was one of those, we were kind of radical young people. We were very, very radical. We were against the establishment. We were very disillusioned with the American dream, which was actually a nightmare. And we saw so much hypocrisy, and then there was wars. America was waging wars against Vietnam and so on. And then there was civil rights problems. The African Americans were suppressed. It's just a very frustrating time. So most of us that joined were called what we call hippies. We were the radical left. We, reject this whole status quo and create some new kind of model. So when many of us joined, we were super fanatic. We were just heavy fanatic, and we realized that this is like, wow, Prabhupada is the master, he's the real revolutionary. We wanted a revolution. We were following the Beatles and they had songs about revolution. We're following other musicians who were singing lyrics, writing lyrics about changing, and identifying the various hypocrisies in society, so-called advanced Western materialistic society was not so great. So coming into that, we were just running out every day telling people, oh yeah, surrender to Krishna. We go out and do kirtan in the streets of the West, Canada, US, basically where I was. Just for hours and hours, we chant Hare Krishna, wearing, these sheets. We would get sheets in those days. We just buy a sheet, a cotton sheet, and then we go and we get some dye and dye them orange. People shaved head. People had no idea what are these people. But we're so inspired by Prabhupada. We gave our life to Prabhupada. I mean, I was 20 years old. Some of us were 18, 17. We were like young, lots of energy, lots of power, and we'd pretty well overpower people in the streets. and Prabhupada kept telling us, when I saw Prabhupada for the first time was Portland, Oregon. That's on the west coast of America. We had a little temple there, and so many devotees would they would descend on Prabhupada. Wherever Prabhupada was, thousands of devotees just descend there, from all over. And Prabhupada, the first thing he said at the airport when he came in, he said, you're going on Harinam for 10 hours, 8 hours, 6 hours a day. But my books are Brihat Madanga. If they get a Bhagavatam or a Bhagavad Gita, if they get a big book, it goes in their library and they're like time bombs. They will go off and people will be transformed. So he was starting to tell us and emphasize book distribution is even more important than doing Harinam. Because people walk by, they see Hare Krishna, they don't know this is a great, great ancient philosophy coming down from, the sun god. Krishna spoke it to the sun gods, millions of years old. So Prabhupada kept really pushing that every time I saw Prabhupada. So when I was in LA, being a fanatic, and just like after class, we just run out the door and hit people in the streets, hey, you got to read this book, take this book, like that. So Prabhupada looked at me and he said, this is a very gradual process. He said, slow, take it slow. And don't be like, in other words, don't be so like passionate and then maybe like fireworks, you light them up, make a big noise, and then it's finished. He said, this is a gradual process. And he looked straight at me saying, gradual process. I was sitting in front of him, fanatic little brahmachari. Going to take over the world in one day. I'm going to see Krishna in a few months. I'll probably see Krishna. So that was one thing he said. Then they would always invite us to go on walks with Prabhupada. So the first walk I went with Prabhupada, he stopped. It was always in a park. So we were walking in a park in Portland, and there was some ducks and some frogs. Now Prabhupada compares frogs, scientists and philosophers, to frog in the well. So he stopped there. Dhanavir Maharaj was there, he's a grihas at the time, and some other devotees, and I was just following Prabhupada behind him. And he looked at the frog. He said, so what is the big Mr. Frog saying today? And then, of course, the devotees would say, they say, Prabhupada, that chemicals makes life. That the chemicals come together and you get life. And then Prabhupada would just just destroy the scientists. So every time there was a morning walk, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj would come from um, his college, which was just south of Los Angeles, and was I think UCLA. I forget which town. Anyway, he would come, and he wasn't like us. He wasn't hippies. He was doing a PhD in science. So he saw all these like really like intense people, and he was wondering what's going on. And then he would go with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada would always bring up scientists. He said they're misleading the whole world. He said they're the intellectuals of the world, and they're saying there's no God. So what do you say? And then Sri Damodar Maharaj would always bring up, well, they say Prabhupada, they will produce life, or they say Darwin's theory of evolution, and then Prabhupada would smash it all the time. And then sometimes Prabhupada would have people come to see him, like very prominent scholars, religious scholars were completely amazed at the Hare Krishna explosion. It was just out of nowhere. All these young people are joining this Swami from India who came with nothing. He said, I paid them nothing, but they've given me their lives. He would say it like that. Sometimes his godbrothers would complain, why are you giving, Diksha and this and that? And he said, they've given me their life. So when scholars came, Prabhupada would be very strong with them, very strong. He said, the problem is that people are saying they're religious, whether they're Hindu or Christian or Muslim, they don't follow anything. He says, one time he met a Hindu professor at a big university, and Sri Damodar Maharaj was with him. And so Prabhupada was speaking to this professor from India. And he said, Swamiji, Hinduism is so vast. No one knows what Hinduism is. It's so vast, so many different avenues. And Prabhupada looked at Sri Damodar Maharaj. He said, so, Sri Damodar? He said, someone is a professor and he's teaching something, but he doesn't know what it is. What is that called? And Sri Damodar, he took the cue and he went, that's called cheating, Prabhupada, cheating. And Prabhupada looked straight at this professor. He said, yes, you're a cheater. And, the professor just, like this. And then Prabhupada told us, I'm an old man. I can chastise. I can say this. But you're young. You can't say this. But I can be very strong. He said, I'm an old man. They won't retaliate. But you're a young man like that. So when they came to the temple in Los Angeles, these were some very important scholars, like Stilson Judah. He was from UCLA Berkeley, and he was connected with the President of the United States. Another one was Harvey Cox from Harvard. He was a head of the Divinity College, and he loved Prabhupada. In fact, he would come and see Prabhupada. I met him a few times, this professor, Harvey Cox. And he would say, if I was younger, I'd become a Hare Krishna. But this professor, the President of the United States would ask him, because so many swamis were coming from India, and many of them were cheaters. I won't mention their names, but they were what they call streamlining Hinduism. They would say, oh, no, this is not religion. This is just you do some yoga, some meditation, and you see the light. Or some swamis would come. One swami, they said, oh, no, he's Krishna. He is the latest avatar, Krishna. So much cheating. And thousands of people would follow these guys, thousands and thousands. They would have huge crowds coming to see them. Oh, God has come to America. So the United States government, they were a little worried because some of these swamis were advocating things like drug addiction. There's no problem, you take drugs. And some of them are saying there's no God, you're all God, there's no real God like this. And so the government of the White House, they called Harvey Cox, the divinity in charge, Divinity College in Harvard. They said, what is this Bhaktivedanta Swami? Is he another Swami coming here? Or is he authentic? And Harvey Cox said, he says he's one in millions. He said, he's one in millions. He said, he is a great, great devotee of God. Harvey Cox said that, although he was actually Christian, he was glorifying Prabhupada in such a nice way. And therefore, the Hare Krishna movement was being protected by a lot of religious scholars because they would see that we were following the four principles. We gave up intoxication. Most of us were taking intoxication. Most of us were engaged in gross sense gratification. We didn't know what was principles or anything, but we knew we were suffering. So Prabhupada said, he was so proud, he would say, my disciples, they don't even drink tea. He would say that, like we gave everything up, And I was a brahmachari for 12 years. How is that possible? Because the churches were closing. Prabhupada say, oh, all your churches are closing. You can't attract. And many of these priests and cardinals, big, big people will come, Swamiji, what's your secret? Our boys and girls are joining you. They're growing up in Jewish or Christian, but why they're joining you? Because I am following properly. He would speak very clear, very frankly. He said, the Bible says, thou shalt not kill. Why are you killing cows every day? You're eating cows. And you expect Jesus to take your sins. You're putting your acharya, oh, you accept my pap, and I'll go on living like this, Papa was saying. So he had great respect. So in that way, the Hare Krishna movement, although it was under attack during Prabhupada's time, Prabhupada would tell us that, oh, that's a good sign. He said the demons, they're attacking you because they feel the pressure of Krishna consciousness. Of course, they're going to retaliate. He said, we're declaring war in the Kali Yuga. We're declaring war on Kali. Prabhupada would always say, one time he was in the elevator and he was coming from the hospital. And Ramaswara was telling Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you had a heart attack. Time you should go to California and relax in the sunshine. We have a house for you. And Prabhupada looked around at him and said, never take away my right to struggle for Krishna. He said, I'm going to preach. I don't need a holiday. Like that. So he just chastised Ramaswara. Never take away my right to struggle for Krishna like this. So Prabhupada was a warrior right to the end, right? Although he came at 69, 70, he was powerful. Like when I'm walking behind him, you had to move. He was very powerful, like moving like this powerful force. And it was spiritual power. After all, his body was 70, 80 years old, but he had so much spiritual power. When I sat in a room with Prabhupada, the whole room was like the sun was inside. It was extremely like Shakti, such like Vishuddha Sattva. It was almost like the whole room was getting cleansed of all sinful reactions. And Prabhupada would say that, I visit the temples to purify them. So he was definitely an extremely powerful presence when we were in the room with him. And he was always very, very serious, but sometimes he would cut a joke. So I was sitting there, and one godbrother said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, what is the most powerful thing? And Prabhupada said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, most powerful thing is intelligence. And then he was very happy. The movement was really growing. Then he told a story about the jungle animals. So every month, one animal had to sacrifice his life to the lion. So when it came time for the rabbit came and stood next to a empty well, a big well. And when the lion came, Prabhupada was telling this joke from the Vyasa-san. And he said, and he's just smiling. He said, "This is real power intelligence." So the rabbit told the lion, "Oh no, I belong to the lion that's down in the well." So the lion said, "What, rascal? No, no, you belong to me." And he looked down the well and he roared. And Prabhupada said, when he roared, the echo came back. Woo! And the lion, rascal, and he jumped into the well. And Prabhupada said, "All finished," like this. He said, "All finished." And he was grinning like this, you know. And he's saying, intelligence is the most powerful thing. So like that, we would hear some stories like this from Prabhupada. And there was one story you might have heard. The Malati. Malati was, very dedicated to Prabhupada. And when she came with Prabhupada, he was just in the Bhajan Kutir. Here in Mayapur is nothing. When I came here, he was just sleeping all night with mosquitoes. I was up. They just had the long building when I came, just before Prabhupada left. And you just sleeping all night. It was very austere for the Western devotees. Very austere. Everyone would get sick. Everyone would get sick, you know. Anyway, Malati was cooking for Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had a bhajan kutir, which we know. And Prabhupada's godbrothers, Gaudiya Math, came to meet Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was very strong with his disciples who were close to him. So Malati came in and she was bringing Prabhupada prasadam. She was cooking for Prabhupada, tiny little burner. And Prabhupada looked at her. He said, "This is my disciple Malati. I chastise her a lot. But," he said, "if in a critical case," he said, "she will slit her throat for me and I will slit my throat for her." Like this, he said to his godbrothers. Said she'll do it. She'll slit her throat for me, and I will slit mine for her. She's like real strong. Prabhupada has strong love for his disciples, very strong. When we know that Brahmananda was in Pakistan and the war broke out, and somehow Brahmananda got back to Mumbai, and then Prabhupada was so worried. He was touching him. "Oh, you're okay. You're okay." Because there was in the newspaper saying that two Hare Krishna devotees in Pakistan got killed somehow, but it was just not true. So Prabhupada was very, very, very much appreciative of every little service that we did for him, and he was so grave. He was amazed. He thought, "Oh, I'll go to America. I'll make a couple of temples, maybe 5 or 6 temples. Maybe a few people will join." That's how he was thinking. And then suddenly this whole thousands of young people, just thousands joining. I mean, in those days, every day in America, people were joining. And probably you could see that he was just so amazed how much mercy Lord Chaitanya, like he didn't expect such a big explosion. And then devotees were running off all over the world. Go to Africa, go to South America, go there, even go to Moscow, which was USSR at the time, very dangerous places. And devotees just go. They go and start chanting, and suddenly, people would join. Huge explosion. And probably you could see in his face that he really he was just so much emotion and gratitude that he tried for Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He just tried, and this thing just opened the sky open, just unbelievable. If I remember going to Rath Yatra in San Francisco, it was maddening. Thousands of these people would come, just to see Prabhupada, famous people, famous musician. Who is this Swami? What is it? What is his magic? How he did this, you know? And Prabhupada would stand there and he would just say, "My dear ladies and gentlemen of America, everyone is following you. So you should become Krishna conscious, and then your country will be very happy and peaceful." Like that, he would preach like this. Big, big Rath Yatra, you know, thousands and thousands of people will come to see this miracle that Prabhupada did, you know. And there was so much excitement. Wherever, I remember coming to the Los Angeles airport, and wherever Prabhupada came, especially Los Angeles, thousands of devotees would come from all over the place. They would just show up, you know. So Prabhupada came to Los Angeles airport, and he would wait till all the other passengers got off the plane. So when he came, there was just huge kirtan. Devotees just take over the whole terminal, you know, American Airlines or United Airlines. And you just see an ocean of devotees, an ocean of saffron coming down the moving sidewalk, you know, and probably standing there like this, you know, so proud, you know. And all these devotees around him, they're all chanting. They didn't care. All the airport security, "No, you can't make noise. Shut up," you know. This massive kirtan's going on, and people are like completely bewildered, like, what's going on? And then we would get a nice limousine for Prabhupada, Rolls Royce. We get a Rolls Royce for Prabhupada. And the devotee would park the Rolls Royce right in front of the door. No parking lot. Just right there, you know, big sign, no parking. You know, and the cops would be screaming at devotees, "Our spiritual master has come. Be quiet. We don't care." And then probably just walk into the Rolls Royce, sit down, you know, and go to the temple. And then, of course, the news people, the TV people, "Oh, Swami, why you're supposed to be Vairagi? Why are you driving in Rolls Royce? This is material. Why are you materially attached?" Prophet said, "What? Rolls Royce?" He said, "Spiritual master, representative of God. Krishna had golden chariot. Why you didn't bring me golden Rolls Royce?" Just this like that, Prabhupada would say, because he knew. Then he say, "You're envious." You know, he just tell them, because Prabhupada Shamalos Chasma Kanchana, whether it's stone or gold, Prabhupada see that Krishna everywhere like that. And they used to, "Oh, Swamiji, you taking jets all over the world? You preaching against materialism? But why are you using jets? It's a material thing." Prabhupada said to the lady, he said, "If I did not use the jet, it would be completely useless." He said, "In Krishna's service, I can use anything." He said, "What do you mean?" And then, of course, he say, "You're just envious people, so you're asking these questions." They're always poking, you know, "Why this? Why that?" You know, and Prabhupada would play them, you know. "Oh, you have so many cars, Swami? Why you have?" "Yes, yes. In Germany, we have 25 vehicles. In New York, we have 20 vehicles," you know, and he's playing it up, you know. Yeah, but he said they should ask some serious questions. They should ask serious questions, not always like trying to find some fault, you know? So that was
I
Srila
heard so many,
Prabhupada.
you have said so many new things that I'd never heard before. Have you thought of writing a book about Srila Prabhupada?
Maybe one day.
Oh, please, please, please. We cannot have enough of this. Please do think about it. So, Prabhu, we would like to end with a kirtan from you.
Me?
Please.
Little kirtan then.
Yes, yes, please.
I don't play harmonium, but I play a little madanga. No. Just a minute. Oh, here it's over here. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Asachadizatadine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Asachadizatadine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Go Bhakta Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your presence. Really enlightened all of us. And
Thank you.
please don't think this is the end of it. We will be inviting you again. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you for blessing us with the wonderful Leela of Srila Prabhupada that I never heard before. Thank
Oh,
you very
really?
much. Yes, many
Thank
things
you.
I didn't hear before. So
Where are
please
you?
think
Where are
about.
you located? Where are you coming? What's your group and where are you from?
I believe everybody's from Ohio,
Okay.
and I'm right here in Mayapur. I see you at
Yeah.
Mangal Aarti. I see
Yeah.
Mataji.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
Ohio devotees, Ohio,
yes,
Cleveland, Columbus, different places like
yes,
that. Very
yes,
nice. Very nice.
yes.
Well, we please in America they can buy books, please distribute books in different parts of the Midwest there and the Ohio area and that whole area. Try your best somehow distribute books. Vaisheshika has some groups that go around in Silicon Valley and distribute books. So keep it going, as much as you can. People are very open to reading Bhagavad Gita, and there's nice programs there in the U.S. So good for you. Hare Krishna.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your encouragement, Prabhu. Thank you again.
Haribol. Thank you.
Haribol, Haribol. Thank you,
Hare Krishna.
everyone. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Manash. Hare
Prabhu,
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
very welcome here from VIHE. Our heartfelt thanks to you. You have
Oh,
really motivated all the groups of people here. So
uh-huh.
please do visit us again. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sure. Thank
Anybody
you.
would like to say something? Anybody wants to say something in very quick way?
We're also
Or
so grateful for Prabhu's association, Mataji. Yeah, we're so grateful
Very,
for
very
Prabhu's association.
inspiring. It's a great way to
Yes,
end Lilamrita. So,
yes.
Yeah, I see
Thank you
that
so
you're
much,
all
Prabhu, for your association.
initiated devotees. That's very nice. Very good. Very encouraging and inspiring.
Thank you.
So keep up the good
Hare Krishna.
work, and we'll see you again. Thank you, Haribo.
right, Bob.
Thank you,
Haribol,
Mataji. Thank you.
Haribol, Hare Krishna.